All right. Definitely encourage you to check out 4Kids. Scan that QR code that was up on the screen, but definitely meet Alexis at his table today. Get his number. He'll take you out to lunch. He told me he'd take everybody out to lunch once, all right? So that's what he told me. He might not have actually told me that, but I just signed him up, so there we go. We are in the midst of our season of spiritual renewal here at Church in the Palms during the season of Lent, which is like a Christian season, an ancient season that we've been doing for a long time as believers. But here at Church in the Palms, we try to focus in on a spiritual habit, a spiritual discipline that can kind of direct and guide our hearts as we prepare for Easter, as we prepare for the resurrection. And so we're looking this year at the idea of Sabbath rest. This is something that we are very, very bad at in our culture. It's in the Ten Commandments, but we barely ever stop to really practice Sabbath rest. We think resting is like sitting down and playing a video game for an hour. We think resting is taking a quick breather in between our projects. It's that little reminder on your phone, be mindful. That's not rest. That's just a break. Sabbath rest is different. And we've talked about how Sabbath rest has four main components. It's to stop, to rest, to delight, and to contemplate. And we spent the last 2 weeks talking about what it means to stop and to rest, what it means to actually stop. Because we are in a society, we are in a culture that is go, 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 push, 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 hurry, faster, harder. If you stop, you'll die. And so we, as an act of resistance, choose to stop. We choose to rest. We choose to take a break from all the production. But these last 2 weeks have been a lot of what we should not do. All right? We've done a lot of talk about what we should not do. But Sabbath is not just a list of things we shouldn't do. It's actually a list of things that we should do. And so now we're at my favorite part of the Sabbath practice, and that is delight. This is my favorite part because this is something we get to add into our lives. It's not just something we have to avoid. This is something we get to enjoy. This is the gift, the real gift of Sabbath, is to delight in God's world. This idea comes from the very beginning of Scripture. When God created the world in 7 days, after day 6, he looked at all that he had made, and what did he say? It is very good. He sees his creation. He says, this is very good. Now, Jan, I'm putting you on the spot. What's the word for good? You remember the Hebrew word? Bien. Oh, bien. Oh, we're going Spanish. I was thinking Hebrew. Tov. Tov is the Hebrew word for, Jan's been practicing her Spanish lately, so she was ready to go with Spanish. That's awesome. Muy bien. Very good. But the Hebrew word is tov. It means beautiful. It means complete. It means everything is as it should be. It's harmonious. It's like God stops from all this work and he sits and he enjoys what he's made. This beautiful world, this beautiful creation. He says, wow, this is beautiful. This is perfect. It's like my wife makes fun of me because when we were painting our house, I would do this thing. When I'd finish a room, I'd go and I'd just stand in the middle and stare at it. I'd paint a wall, I'd finish, I'd get it all done, and I'd go and I'd look at these walls and I would just take it in. I'd breathe it in. I'd just enjoy the work of my hands. It was a really joyful experience. It's the same thing I do when I finish mowing the lawn. I like to go out in the backyard and I just stare at it for a little bit. And my wife has to come out and kind of slap me and be like, what are you doing? God delighted in his creation. Delight is something that we struggle with in our society. And sadly, it's also something we struggle with in the church. Peter Scazzaro, who wrote an amazing book on sort of what it looks like to wrestle with the idea of I am trying to pursue Christ, but I am also a flawed individual who has a bunch of stuff in my background, a bunch of hurt and pain in my life. He wrote a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I encourage every believer in Jesus to read this book. It is very, very helpful when you're trying to develop a spiritual life with Jesus, but you're wrestling with that inner self that wants to push back, and you're going, why is this feel so hard? In that book, he says that our society is delight deficient. We don't delight in anything. We're too busy. We're too overworked. We have too much to do to stop and smell the roses. We don't practice gratitude. There was a challenge that I gave you last week at the end of the message was to just write down some things that you are grateful for. And I hope that process made you realize how many good things God has given you, how many things there are to be grateful for. In the midst of a world where, yes, there are a lot of problems. Yes, there are a lot of bad things. Yes, there are a lot of things that we struggle with and we're afraid of. In the midst of that, we also have so many good things. We often think of fun as unserious. People who have fun, people who are filled with joy, people who go out and goof off, it's unnecessary. Even in the church, sometimes we might associate fun and joy and excitement and jubilance with sinfulness. Richard Foster wrote a book called Celebration of Discipline, where he talks about these disciplines that we need to add to our spiritual life to walk with Jesus: prayer, worship, fasting, the Sabbath. At the end of that book, Celebration of Discipline, he talks about the discipline of celebration. That's how he chooses to end his book. He says, celebration is not something that just magically happens. It's a discipline. It's something we have to practice. We have to learn how to celebrate. We have to learn how to have joy. In that chapter, he says, delight is what keeps every discipline from becoming dull, death-breathing tools in the hands of modern Pharisees. When I was a kid, I learned really quickly, I was maybe middle school, when I learned something, God had given me a gift. He made me not very good at basketball. I loved playing basketball. It was one of my favorite things to do. And I had some friends in my neighborhood who were amazing at basketball. And when we would play together, I figured out real quick that I was not going to make the middle school basketball team. If this is the standard, I'm not living up to it. And all of a sudden, those stories about Larry Bird shooting 1,000 shots from every spot on the court every single day before he would go do anything else. Those stories about those people who wake up at 4 a.m. to work out so that they can play basketball. Those people who dribble the ball everywhere they go, no matter what, till their hands have blisters and calluses. I didn't have that motivation anymore because I was never going to make it to the NBA. And so basketball became something that was just a joy for me. I just got to play it for the love of the game. So when I think about, if I was going to build a perfect Sabbath day, I want to get a group of guys together and play some basketball. I love the sound of the ball when it goes through the net. Get that little whoosh. I don't hear it very often. It's usually a clanging sound that I hear. Or worse, it's this kind of sound when it hits the backboard. But every once in a while, you hear that swish. And in those moments, it just feels like, oh, God, this is good. This is the good life. I used to get together with a group of youth pastors, and we'd play basketball with people. And it was one of the more joyful experiences I've ever had in my life. And yet now, I'm just too busy. I'm too busy. I'm too serious. I'm an adult now. I can't take time out of my life to go do something I enjoy. That's crazy. But what if we did? What if we learned how to Sabbath? To find joy in life again? When you're trying to get a kid to learn a skill, you have to find a way to make it fun for them. If you want your kid to learn piano, they're not going to learn it through grit. They're not going to learn it through discipline and getting in trouble if they don't practice enough. If you can make it fun, you unlock this secret. They'll want to learn. They'll want to practice. They'll want to play because it's not just a discipline, it's a joy for them. When we're talking about Sabbath, we don't have to Sabbath. We get to Sabbath. This is a joy for our lives. Or as Jesus would say it, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. You see, the Sabbath was a gift to us to improve our lives, to bless our lives. It was not something that we're required to do. It is not something that we need to be tortured by in our keeping. It is a gift. And this is why Richard Foster says delight is what keeps every discipline from becoming dull, death-breathing tools in the hands of modern Pharisees, because these things are for our good. If we can learn the joy in having a prayer life that we don't have to force ourselves to pray, we'll come to God in prayer because we found the joy in talking to our Heavenly Father. We can find the joy in worship, then it won't be a drudge to get out of bed in the morning and come to church and fellowship with other believers, because God will put this part in us where we found this joy. We'll want to be there. When we know the church doors are going to be open, we don't want to miss it. Sabbath isn't meant to be a bunch of rules and burdens. It's supposed to be a set of lines in the sand that we get to draw for our own lives to say, I am more than a productivity machine. I am more than what I produce. I am more than what I do. I am a child of God who has received good things that I'm meant to enjoy. There's a great theologian who once said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. That, of course, was Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller, the more I've thought about it this week, is really this beautiful picture of Sabbath. It might sound strange, but think about what he does in that movie. If you've ever seen it, it's this high school kid who is probably in his 30s, who takes a day off of school with his other 30-year-old friends, and they go out for a day of whimsy and fun. And in the movie, they go to a museum and they look at art. And there's a scene where they just stare at these paintings, and they're just lost in the beauty of this art. Ferris, he goes and he sings and dances in the streets of Chicago. They go to a baseball game and they celebrate. They go swimming in the pool with their friends. He spends a day with the people he loves the most, doing the things that bring him joy. And they cut away throughout the movie back to the school. And there's this scene where Ben Stein is a teacher, and he's taking roll in the class, and everybody's sitting there half asleep, drudging through life, while Ferris is out having this great time, and Ben Stein's going, Bueller, Bueller. Didn't we all have a teacher that had that monotone voice? Like, I think everybody had Ben Stein as a teacher at some point in their life. And it was so hard to stay focused. It was so hard to stay awake. Now, I'm not saying that you should go skip your job or skip school or encourage your kids to skip school, although I think that's a fun thing to do every once in a while. One time we tried to surprise Abigail. We were going to pick her up early from school to go to the fair. And we knew if we told her, she would tell her teacher. Okay? So we thought if we just come and pick her up, she won't be able to process fast enough. She'll just get in the car and go, where are we going? We're going to the fair. So we get to school about 11 o'clock. The fair is about to start. We go in the main office. They call her classroom. And we hear over the megaphone, over the speakerphone, they go, we need Abigail Imel to come to the office. She's going home. And she goes, I bet I'm going to the fair. So her teacher sent us an email and was like, where are you guys going to the fair? We're like, yeah, we're busted. There's joy in life, and sometimes we are so busy drudging through it that we never stop to look at the beautiful art. We never stop to go to a baseball game. We never stop to sing in the streets and experience the joy that this world has to offer us. By practicing Sabbath, we are saying that for 24 hours, I am going to stop working. I'm going to stop producing. I'm going to stop efforting, and I'm going to start enjoying. Biblical joy is a discipline. It's not something we just randomly bump into. Now, the opposite of joy will hit you. You don't have to choose suffering in this life. You don't have to choose pain in this life. You don't have to choose sorrow. Those things will find you wherever you are. This is one of the great secrets of life, is that no matter how healthy you are, no matter how strong you are, no matter how rich you are, pain, suffering, sorrows finds everyone. It's the great equalizer. Joy, though, we have to choose. Joy is a choice. It's something that we have to choose to do. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. Not you might have trouble. He said, this world will bring you trouble. But in that same conversation with his disciples, he said this, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. Jesus came to bring us joy. I've always been confounded, dumbfounded by the people in church who are just always angry about something. The people who never smile, never laugh, never find joy in anything. They're always looking for the next problem. I don't understand how you can receive the gifts that Jesus has given you and not be filled with joy. But I do understand it's because this world wants to suck that out of you. It wants to steal your joy. The enemy is a liar and a thief, and he comes to steal our joy. He wants to take the joy of our salvation and make us forget that once we were slaves, once we were dead men, and now we are alive. St. Augustine wrote, a Christian should be an alleluia from head to foot. Our lives should be declaring the joy of the Lord. Scripture also tells us that whenever a person comes into a relationship with Jesus, that all of heaven rejoices. There is a party in heaven. The angels celebrate when one lost sinner comes to Christ. We're lucky if somebody gets a few claps when that happens. When Jesus' birth was announced, the angels said, I bring you good news of great joy. Even Jesus, when he described his mission here on earth, he goes to the temple and he grabs a scroll and he reads this scripture to say, this is my mission, this is why I came. It's found in Luke 4. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The year of the Lord's favor was something that harkens all the way back to the Old Testament. To the people in Egypt, as they were freed from slavery, God instituted this new law, this new way of life. There was this pattern that they already had of working for 6 days and then resting on the seventh. There was a 7-day pattern to life. We've already talked about that. But God took it even farther. He said every 7 years, you're going to let the land rest. So you've got 7 days, you rest. Every 7 years, your land, your animals, everything rests. So you store up for yourselves and you eat whatever God provides from land. Do you trust him for that? It was a challenge. Do you trust that God will produce the fruit of the tree if you don't work the fields? Do you trust that you will have planned ahead enough and you will store enough that he will take care of you? Then every 7 times 7 years, so every cycle of 7 years, 7 times, got any math whizzes? 7 times 7? 49. So after 49 years, so you've had 7 Sabbath years. On the 50th year, it was a year of Jubilee. The year of Jubilee is one of my favorite ideas in Scripture. It sounds amazing. Do you know what the year of Jubilee is? It was a time when all debts would be canceled. It's a time when land was returned to its original owners. If you'd gone into a hardship and you had to sell your land, you had to sell your home so that you could survive, Because this world can be hard sometimes, and we can get in situations that we never thought we'd get into, and sometimes we can feel like I'm never going to be able to dig out of that. How many people can associate and identify with that feeling? God, how did I get this low? How did I get this deep in debt? How did I get so far? I never thought it would happen to me. Surely, I know other people, they make all these bad decisions, but God, I haven't been blowing my paycheck. I haven't been making stupid decisions. I don't have vices. I'm not out there just gambling my money away. God, how did I get here? Well, the world's not fair. So God said every 50 years, everything goes back to its original owner. You had to sell your land to save your family. Guess what? In 50 years, you get it back. Every 50 years, slaves were freed. This was revolutionary. In the world of the Bible, slaves were not people, they were property. If you were a slave for life, and you were only as good as your usefulness. If you hurt yourself, if you broke something, if you just got old and you couldn't do anything, you were cast out and killed because you were no longer useful to them. But the God of the Hebrews says, we're not going to treat slaves that way. We're not going to treat servants that way. We're not going to treat people that way because slaves are made in the image of God. Everyone is made in the image of God. So if somebody gets in a hard situation and the only way they can survive is to offer themselves to work for someone else, I'm going to move into your home. I'm going to eat your food. You're going to provide for my needs. And for the next 50 years, I'm going to work for you. At the end of those 50 years, they were freed. No strings attached. They were able to go home. Or if that happened on year 49, they knew and you knew next year's the year of Jubilee. This is a one-year deal. You're going to come live in my home. I'm going to feed you. You're going to help me work my fields. And when the year turns, you get to go home free because you are not a tool. You are a person with value and worth and dignity. This was not God saying that slavery is good or slavery is okay. God was moving his people in the culture they were in to realize that all things that put burdens and debts and chains on people are wrong in every manner. And so we have to be trained to see people as more than tools. Jesus says, I have come to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. My coming to earth as Jesus is the true Jubilee. He says, I've come to proclaim good news to the poor. Your debts are about to be forgiven. But it's not a debt of money. It's a debt that no matter what, you couldn't pay it. It's the debt of sin. There was not anything you could do. You could never do enough good works to pay that debt off. You were dead in your debt. But I have come as Jesus to save you from that debt. He says, I have been sent to proclaim freedom for the prisoners. He says, there are chains on you that the year of Jubilee doesn't break. You're a slave to sin, whether you like it or not. And Jesus says, I have come to break even those chains, to make you free from the debt and the slavery of sin. As Christians who believe that message of Jesus, how can we not be living in Jubilee? The year of Jubilee for the ancient Israelites was a year of celebration. It was a year of joy. Everyone was on equal footing. There was equality throughout the land. There were no more debts. There were no more chains. Everyone was free. And it was a year to just celebrate the gifts of God. You feasted. You partied. You had people over to your home to celebrate the abundance that God had given you over the last 50 years and to trust that he would be faithful again for the next 50. And this is what Jesus says he's come to do for all time, for all people, always. And we yawn through church. Doesn't that sound like good news of great joy? Doesn't that sound like something the angels were pronouncing in the fields to those shepherds, saying that Jesus has come? It's time to celebrate. Your chains are broken. Your debts are forgiven. Listen, if I got something in the mail tomorrow that said my mortgage was paid off, I am throwing the biggest party of my life. Everybody's invited. It's on me. You know how much joy I would have if somebody paid off my student loans? Oh, because it feels like burden. It feels like chains. We have been forgiven a debt that is so much greater than student loans or mortgages or credit card debt. The debt of sin has been paid in full. You don't have to worry about it. Where's the rejoicing? Where's the celebration? Chains were broken. We were made free. You know, one of the best parties in American history was on Juneteenth because people found out they were free. You are free. Your chains have been broken. Why does delight matter? Why is this important? Why is this a part of Sabbath? Well, first off, delight matters because it gives us a real perspective on the world. In this world, we will have trouble. And if we're not aware of the good, it will swallow us up. It'll chew us up and it'll spit us out. We will feel crushed by the troubles of this world if we don't stop and delight in it from time to time. Tim Keller, a pastor in New York, said, because this world is full of ugly things, we need the Sabbath to feed our soul with beauty. Sabbath is stopping in the midst of all the problems of the world and looking at something beautiful. It's a reminder that in the midst of the suffering, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the injustice, God has given us good things. We talked a few weeks ago about negativity bias and how our brains are wired to the negative 14 times stronger than to the positive. That means you will remember the things people say that are negative 14 times more often than you'll remember a compliment that they give you. As Christians, as believers in Jesus, if we don't stop and enjoy the beauty of creation, if we don't stop and look at this world, look at our families, look at our friends, look at our neighbors, look at the work of our hands and take satisfaction and joy in it, we'll just burn out because this world is heavy. It's not that we're ignoring the problems. It's not that we're sticking our head in the sand and pretending like there aren't real problems, but it's a recognition that we can't fix everything. That sometimes we have to lay our weapons down and enjoy life to remind ourselves why we're fighting the fight that we have. I know a lot of people who are really passionate about a lot of different things. Some people are really passionate about foster care. They want every child to have a home more than anything else. They fight for the cause. They go out and they champion it. They take kids into their own homes. And I know other people who are passionate about other causes. There's people who are passionate about building wells so people can have clean drinking water, because of all the things in this world, that is one of the most important things we can offer to someone. I know people who are passionate about education, that we need to educate people. We need to get out there and teach people so they can grow and they can accomplish more. Whatever you're passionate about, it doesn't really matter. If you don't stop from time to time and take your eyes off the problem and start looking at the good, eventually you'll forget why you're even fighting your fight. You have to remember what's worth fighting for. You have to remember that there is good in this world. Sometimes it is good to stop tweeting. Stop arguing. Stop fighting every battle. Shut off the news. Shut off the machine and enjoy this life. Not because you're ignoring the problems, not because they're not real and they don't matter, but because if you don't, you'll burn out anyway, and you'll be no good to anyone. John Mark Comer said in a message recently that I was listening to, he said, the news is biased. Surprised? Anybody? But he says it's not biased left and right, it's biased down. The news is biased down. It's made to bring us down. It is made to discourage us. It's made to make us think that there is no hope in this world. And if all we do is listen to the news, we will become people who feel like there just is no hope. And if you start believing that there is no hope, then you will stop trying to create that hope. You will stop chasing it. You will stop talking to people and trusting and hoping that they might become someone who does more with their life. You'll stop believing that that obnoxious kid in middle school could become a grown adult who can contribute to some society someday, so they are worth my time. Nick? What? I love you, Nick. You'll stop believing that people can change, that the world can change, that things are worth fighting for. If we don't delight, we'll stop realizing that God is in control, and He cares more about the cause that you are passionate about than you do. You know, God cares more about foster care than Alexis does. I promise you. He wants every child to have a home more than Alexis, more than anybody. He wants wells dug in Africa more than anybody on earth. And if you don't start believing that He will see it done, yeah, you might be a part of it, but you're not going to be the one. It's going to be Him. Delight helps us have perspective. The second thing delight does is it helps us practice gratitude. Gratitude flows out of a heart of joy, and listen, grumps aren't grateful. They just aren't. If you're constantly upset about things, you are not practicing gratitude, because gratitude kills grumpiness, because it breeds joy. We live in a society where we used to keep up with the Joneses, and that was the person next door. But now we're living in a society where we are constantly comparing our lives to the people on social media, the people on Instagram, the people everywhere. We're all interconnected. If we go on an amazing vacation, just wait till your neighbor shows you the pictures from theirs. We went to Nashville, and we saw the Parthenon. There's a Parthenon in Nashville. It's really weird. It's really weird. If you go to Nashville, go check it out. Centennial Park. And your friend will pull up their slideshows from Greece. And all of a sudden, your trip to Nashville feels so small and insignificant. Teddy Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." We are constantly comparing ourselves and our lives and our blessings and our gifts to others, and it's sucking the joy out of our lives. Delight helps us slow down and enjoy the gifts that God has already given us. It helps us recognize that the things we prayed for 5 years ago that He has given us are still there. I know people who prayed for a child earnestly. God, give me a child. If I had a child, my life would be so full. We've been struggling with infertility. We've been struggling with this battle. It's all I need in life. I don't need the money. I don't need the job. I don't need the titles. I don't need I just want a child. Give me that, and I'll finally be happy. And then just 2 or 3 years down the road, they don't even remember the joy that child, that gift was to them. When we slow down and we Sabbath and we rest, we get to delight in the things that God has already given us. The traditional Sabbath included things like this. Well, first off, the traditional Sabbath, the Hebrew Sabbath, began at sundown on Friday night. So they began with a meal. But it wasn't just any meal. It was the meal that everybody had been waiting all week for. You know how we do this occasionally? We do holidays now. You get together for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you have that great meal where everybody brings that recipe that you only get out like once a year. And everybody just, it's great. You fellowship, you have joy. Everybody catches up, and you eat great food. And you're not really complaining. You know, when we go out to restaurants, even when we eat a great meal, we find so many things to complain about. The service could have been faster. The lights were too low. The music was too loud. The silverware was too dirty. They started with a meal, and it was a communal meal. It was their family, their friends, the people they love most would come over, and they would share a meal, and they would just bask in the gift of eating. Then they would sleep. And let me just say, if you're not sleeping on your Sabbath, you're doing it wrong. Enjoy rest. You want a challenge? Try to get 8 hours of sleep this week one time. I was looking at my watch. My watch tracks my sleep, which is ridiculous, by the way. I'm like averaging like 6 hours of sleep, and I thought I was doing good. So I got 8 hours one night this week, and I felt so good. I felt like a new man. I worked so much harder. I was so much more productive. All because I got 8 hours. They would go for walks outside. They would enjoy creation. They would make music. They would sing. They would talk and carry on conversations. They would look at the beauty of creation. Another thing that they would do is this. They would have this practice. We've talked about it before. It's this word. It's a Hebrew word. It's called dayenu. You guys say it with me? Dayenu. Dayenu means it would have been enough. And what they do is they go around the table and they look at their blessings and they say, God, it would have been enough, but you went even further. So God, it would have been enough that you got us together in this room, but then you gave us food on our table. And God, it would have been enough if you gave us bread and water, but instead we have meat and we have vegetables and we have good wine to drink. God, it would have been enough, but you keep going further because that's the kinds of gifts our God does for us. When's the last time you thanked God for the simple things? Finally, delight matters because it draws us closer to God. At its deepest level, the Sabbath is not about just enjoying life. It's about enjoying God. Psalm 37:4 says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. You know, he doesn't say delight in the gifts of the Lord. He says delight in the Lord. The Sabbath reminds God's people of this truth. Life is not about the endless work that we do. It's about a relationship with a God who is available to us. This is why next week we're going to talk about worship and contemplation, how Sabbath is an act of worship. Because when you start to delight in God, it leads you into worship. It leads you to praise. A big part of Sabbath is singing and rejoicing and dancing before the Lord, because what else could you do when you're filled with the joy of the Lord but to let it pour out of you? Sabbath is not meant to just be a bunch of rules that we follow. It's an invitation to celebration. It's an invitation to joy. It's an invitation to delight. It's an invitation to play. The band's going to come forward. We're going to continue worshiping this morning. But I want to ask you, when's the last time you truly played? You know, kids play. We don't play. Adults don't play enough. Think about a kid on a playground. I love watching my kids play at the playground. They run, they laugh, they make friends that they're never going to see again for the rest of their lives, but they become best friends on that playground. Dad, can they come over to our house tonight for dinner? No. No. The answer is always maybe. You know that, parents? Maybe. No, it's not. No, the answer is no, but we say maybe. Our kids figure that one out pretty quick. My kids now know if we say maybe, they're like, you're just going to say no now. They swing, they sweat, they laugh, they're just abounding in joy. And they're not trying to accomplish a single thing. They're not building their resume. They're not worried about productivity. They're not trying to earn a paycheck. They're simply enjoying the world their parents brought them into. And as a parent, we get filled with joy because as we watch them play, we realize that they're enjoying the gifts we've given them. As God's children, when we take time to delight in this good world, to play in this good world, to have fun, to have people over to our house and have a game night, to have a great meal with people and laugh and talk with zero agenda. God looks down from heaven and he goes, this is my children enjoying the gifts I have given them. I'm so glad they're having fun because this world wasn't meant to beat them down and break them. It was meant to be good for them. And I've given them so many good things. I love to watch my kids play. The friendships you have, the neighbors you have, the relationships, the beauty in creation. When I go for a walk in the park, it doesn't take long for me to feel God's presence in that place. And pretty soon I'm looking past the trees and I'm seeing the face of God. And I start to just enjoy him. When I'm with good friends, when they leave, you know that feeling? When they finally leave and the house is quiet and you just take that deep breath and like that was what I was made for. And I'm an introvert. I don't like crowds. Man, when my best friends call and say, hey, we're going to be in town this week, do you want to get together? I know that I'm going to be filled with joy because those are my people. We've become so busy trying to build a life that we've forgotten to enjoy the one that God has freely given to us. Sabbath delight reminds us that we are not slaves, we are not prisoners, we are children. And children are meant to enjoy their Father's house. Delight is what turns our Sabbath from a bunch of rules into a way of life, a thing that just fills us and becomes a gift to us. So if you've been struggling with the Sabbath, if you've been struggling with this process of slowing down, of stopping, this week, make a list of things that if you had a day off, what would you want to fill that day with? On your notes, there's some challenges. Look through those. Make a list. Maybe it's playing basketball. Maybe it's doing yard work. What's the thing that just you love to do? I encourage you, have a great meal on your Sabbath day. Get together. Make that thing that you only make at Christmas time. And just enjoy it on a random Thursday. And see if it doesn't fill you with joy. Enjoy the gifts that God has given you. Enjoy that fact that you are free to play. Let's stand together and let's worship this morning a God who has given us so much. We have so much to be grateful for. So fill your heart with those things. Fill your heart with those thoughts of all the things you have and let it pour forth from you in songs of praise. Let's worship together.